She's the last of her kind. She's built a ship, she's put together a crew, and now she's flying through space, trying to figure out where the rest of her people went, trying to find some answers. That's right, my friends. Today, we continue the story of Cassidy Cayde in The Last Astral using Astroprisma. Let's break it down. Earth got used up, so we moved out and terraformed a whole new galaxy, Earths. Some rich and flush with new technologies, and some, well, not so much. Cassidy Cayde, captain of the Fallen Mercury, a junk ship she built herself. Now she's putting together a crew, but the main mission is to figure out where she came from. You see, the Astral Elves, what Cassidy is, all but disappeared. Now she's flying planet to planet, searching for clues as to where they all went. This is The Last Astral. Well, hi, hello, everybody. My name is Turk. Welcome back to the Grouch Couch. Around here, we do all different kinds of solo RPG things, but that's right. Today, we're continuing Cassidy Cayde's adventure. We have already done a Session 0, talking all about Astroprisma, how we basically plan to run it, and doing a full recap of the characters and the story thus far. If you didn't know, Cassidy Cayde's story has actually been going on over the course of different TTRPGs. There's a full playlist that you can actually check out down in the description below or on the channel for The Last Astral if you want to start from the beginning and get that extra spice for the story. But if you're just here for Astroprisma, have no fear, because this is the perfect place to get a full gameplay example to see how this works a little bit, or at least how I'm going to be doing it. And hopefully this full story will be self-contained right here in Astroprisma, so have no fear. Now, with all that out of the way, I do want to thank all the channel members, the couch crew folks out here supporting the dang show, and all the Patreon members. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and supporting the show. Series like this would not be possible to continue the way that they have without your support. So thank you so much. I really do dang all appreciate you. Now, I have made some addendums, so a little bit of homework at the top-down camera. Before we begin, I say, let's hop over to the top-down camera and let's get it. Whoosh, here we are, my friends. That's right. We've got everything nice and set up. I do have some music going in my headphones. Look at the lights down real low. I like doing this whenever I play games. Gets me a little bit more in the vibe, you know what I mean? But as you can see here, I actually have a roll chart of all the NPC names that you guys so kindly provided me with in the comment section of the last video. If you haven't gotten an NPC name in yet, go on ahead and drop it in the comments below and we'll add it to the list. That's right. And remember, you can add up to 3. I always suggest 1, but you can do up to 3 if you like. That's right. And we also have names for the sheep as well as names for random NPCs. So in Astroprisma, there is a random NPC names roll chart for masculine and feminine names as well as ship names, but we're going to be using the roll charts, the names that comes right from you guys. All right. Very cool. A couple other things. I have finalized our character sheets. All right. I went through it. I did draw our little ship here of the Fallen Mercury. I gave it everything that it needs to be able to operate out in space. I'm not a big artist, but I actually did enjoy this process drawing on a hex map, and they give you good examples of what the parts might look like on your ship in the book. So it was actually kind of fun to look at those and reference them when I was drawing over here. I kind of just started and ended up with this. I had no vision in mind at all when I started, so here we kind of are. Now it has some stats. Each one of these things did come with stats for us, so if we get into a dogfight or whatever, I will cover them as we hit them. All right. Now the crew's character sheets have also been finalized here. They each only have one single special ability, which we will cover as we need once we get into those, certain things that happen. But in a sense, we have our navigator, our gunner, and our medic, and then we have our main character that's Cassidy. And I put her over here as well. I realized later that I didn't need to, but whatever. I thought it was fun to do it. I might erase it if we get a new crew member, and I'll add them in there instead. Little bit of a change. But her character sheet has also been finalized. We have 20 health and 20 energy, which is important. I did give her Force Blast. I talked about it a little bit. I want to use a cybernetic, but theme it a little bit around her character. So she actually has like force abilities, and she got Force Blast, which costs 2 energy, but it gives her an extra 1d6 in combat when she's in melee, pretty much. But we might narratively do it another way if we feel the need to. But Force Blast is actually a cybernetic that is included in the book. It was my goal to use something included here and then kind of reframe it, so that's what I did. But the comment section of the last video, there was actually some fun force power like suggestions that I really enjoyed, so thank you for that. If you have more ideas, make sure to let me know. We've also got our gamma gun, and the helix wire was a weapon. I realized that later, so I put it over there. We've got our 2 potions, our shield stems, our EMP grenades. Everything else is all just on here. I didn't find a good place for scrap, so our 50 scrap is just at the bottom in our notes though, but I think it'll do just fine. Now, everything else kind of is what it is. Oh, but this here faction, I did designate them as the Silver Order. So in our world, the one that we're kind of playing in a little bit, the fiction that we've been developing, if you've been watching from the beginning, these guys here, the Corsair Syndicate, is actually going to be the Silver Order. So if they pop up at any time in roll charts or anything else like that, we're going to reference them as the Silver Order, and that's who they're going to be. So the Corsair Syndicate is a rogue federation of outlaws, smugglers, and bounty hunters. Their ruthless practices and network of contraband hubs have turned them into one of the strangest, strongest groups in the lawless space. And it kind of made sense to me because I was like, the Silver Order is everywhere, right? They are like one of the strongest groups. I don't really know what the heck their deal is though, so hopefully this will help us a little bit. Cool beans. One last thing before we can begin. I thought really hard on it, and on our map over here, as we're exploring, we're going to fill out this map, but I was like, you know what? I really want to put the 2 planets we've actually already been to in our story thus far on the map. Just a little bit of fiction for myself I thought would be fun. So as you can see here, we actually have Janus in the outer ring, because as we described in the very first episode of Iron Sword and Starforge, it was way out in the edge of space, right? And then we left and went to Freya, which was a little bit more civilized, in the middle ring there. And then we have the center ring, which has nothing. Originally you could see I put them there in the center ring, and I was like, no, they need to be on the edge. I was thinking like, this is where we're supposed to start, is the center, so whatever. And I was like, no, let's hit the edge. So we're actually still going to start at the center because we're going to leave Freya and we're going to go here to the inner ring. So we technically still will be starting there according to the game's rules, right? But they're still more like guidelines than anything, right? So no worries. Cool, and that's it, pretty much. All of our little setup and addendums and everything else, it really does work. Oh, also, in the book, I realize it does indeed suggest for you to have a couple of D20s to keep track of everything. So as we can see here, this blue one is going to be our fuel. It's set at 20, our hull of our ship, and then our character's HP also 20. So this is kind of how we're going to keep track of those, so we're not like writing over and over in the book. I thought it was a fun way just to do some turn down dice like it does actually suggest. And most of the dice rolls in this game are contested ability dice rolls. So I pulled out 2 D10. One of them's this purplish D10, and this other one's kind of this spacey blue. And I was like, I like playing with themed dice, you guys. I'm sure you know this by now. And I pulled those out for us to play with as well. But I've got dice everywhere. We'll pull things out as we need them. Sick. I think that's everything before we can begin. I'm pretty excited. I did reread through the rules a little bit. I definitely don't have any of it memorized, but I do always like to say these actual plays are kind of a way for me to push my creative mind and test out new stuff in its full. And I think Astroprisma is a really cool mapping big hero game that I'm just going to enjoy. And so we're just going to test things and play as we go. I'm going to do my best, of course, to get all the rules as correct as possible. But I always say when you're playing solo, make things fit to whatever's fun for you, right? So we'll go back and forth and we'll make it work. All right. Heck yeah. Alrighty, so before we begin, we're really truthfully, we're just gonna get into it. I'm just gonna roll on hexes. We're just gonna react to whatever the heck is happening. And that's really what we're gonna do. We're just gonna roll up this solar system and figure out what the heck's going on. I do have plans to go down onto planets and actually do some stuff. I don't know if we're gonna do every single planet. Some of them are gonna be quick. Some of them are gonna be full, right? Because once we go down on a planet, we might spend a whole dang episode there. So we're gonna go a little bit back and forth. I kind of have an oracle idea that maybe Navi, the other Astro Elf, can tell us if something is weird down there that we should go and check out or not. We could roll yes or no's on that, which will then allow us to have some kind of mechanic to when we should go down on planets or not. But taking a look at our map here, yes, indeed, we are going to be leaving Freya, right? On our map, we're leaving Freya, and we're going to start here in this first hex. This is hex number 1. But before we do that, and we roll up to see what is there and everything else, I actually kind of want to set the scene a little bit. So as we're flying through space, Freya is disappearing behind us. And even in my drawing, I'm sure that you've seen, but the Fallen Mercury is a patchwork ship. So describing it out a little bit more, it has like mismatched, uneven engines on each side. And as it's flying through space, like maybe the folks even on the inside can feel the rhythm of the ship kind of shaking a little bit as we're flying through space. And every time it does, I think that the crew looks at Cassidy a little bit, worried. But she knows that whatever that rattling isn't important. Everything's okay. Probably. So, as Freya disappears behind us in space, reduced to a green speck against the black ahead of the ship, we can see like a fragmented star map hovering above the navigation console. We can see the 2 incomplete pieces of light that are twisting around each other from the 2 beacon pieces that Cassidy has gotten so far. She's put them into the navigation center and she has been studying them. So as we're flying through space, I picture that Cassidy is controlling the ship by hand. She's in the cockpit, and as she leans over, she's looking at all the dials and everything. She probably calls back to Failsafe, and she's like, "Failsafe, how are the engines looking?" And he probably calls back like, Cassidy, things are looking good. The left engine is performing acceptably, but the right engine is demonstrating what I would call courage. She's like, what does that mean? And he's like, it means I would recommend not turning it off. She just turns back to the console and she's like, fantastic. Moving on, I want to think about where the other people of the crew might be on the ship. You know, think about where they might be. And I do picture the ship with like a little common room. You know, it's got some tables, maybe like a little kitchen in there. It's probably not very big though, you know, this being a makeshift ship. She made it for one person and now multiple people are crammed into it. But I do think there's probably a bunk area and stuff like that. So behind Cassidy, we can probably see Tion sitting in a chair that's been repaired with different kinds of scrap metal and maybe even what appears to be an old road sign from the planet of Janus. Maybe we can even see some letters on this road sign that say Janus crossing this way or something like that. And I think next to her in this area is her little sheep, which we're going to roll for a name of, I think right now, but in the scene, Tion rips off a piece of like ration of some kind. I picture it like jerky, and she's gonna hold it out to the sheep, and the sheep's gonna accept the treat before, you know, scampering off and maybe like gnawing on like some kind of like bag or something, you know, fiddling with something. And Tion's like, dang sheep, I'm trying to feed you. Quit eating other stuff. Just causing chaos amongst the ship, the sheep is. It's good to have around though, because it's our source of healing. It's got magical healing first. So we're like putting up with its shenanigans so we can get health, right? Anywho, before we continue that, I want to get the name of the sheep. And as you can see, I only have 4 names here, all right? Suggestions for the sheep. And when I was looking over these, I really liked Barnaby. I thought it was hilarious, but Dooflebag is also pretty good as well. So we're just gonna straight up roll on it, allow you guys to throw in the name here of this here sheep. I'm just gonna roll a D6, and if we get a 5 or a 6, I'll just re-roll it, all right? Here we go. That is a 6, okay, of course. That's a 5, of course. There we go. Now that's a 4. So Lala, Poe, or Cotton Candy. I don't really like Cotton Candy, but I do like Lala and I do like Poe. And it will also give this sheep a designation of if it's a male or a female as well. So let's go ahead and roll again. 1 through 3 will be Lala, and then 4 through 6 will be Poe. 6. So the sheep's name is Poe. P-O. That's the ship's name. Sorry, the sheep's name. Very good. Anyways, as the sheep trots off, I think Failsafe comes out of nowhere and he's like, ma'am, the sheep has tried to eat 3 pieces of equipment since departure. Maybe it needs to eat more. And Tion's probably like, yes, I'm trying to feed him as much as we can. I don't know why he's so hungry. And even on a little bit of improv, this magical sheep is excessively hungry. Why? I wonder. Why? Interesting. Now, where would Slick Sully be? Probably in the cargo hold. I think we can see Slick Sully, who is the large Mothman, the mercenary of the crew. He's laying across 2 crates, and I think he has his large rifle across his lap, and he's polishing this rifle. And he continues to do so as we see like a thin cloud of moth dander, you know, like come out of him as he flutters his wings. And as he flutters his wings, I think a light in the in the cargo area like catches his attention. He looks up at the light and stares at this light for way too long, like almost as if he's going to try and shoot this light or something. He's just really thinking about it. And maybe as that's happening, I think someone approaches him. Maybe it's Cassidy. She's coming to check in on him, and she looks at him and she goes, you planning to shoot that light or something? And he goes, well, it depends. It keeps blinking like it's planning to do something, and I don't trust it. And she's like, well, the light's blinking because it knows that our current coolant system is actually pretty unstable. That sounds suspicious. Why does it know that? Well, I mean, everything on the ship currently is a little bit unstable. Good to know. And these lights know, do they? Well, I've got my eyes on them. Because he's a moth, you know? So like moth jokes, you know? Moths and lights, you know? Now let's do the important parts. Navi, the other astro elf, she is for sure standing at this navigation console where we've seen the rotating map before. And I think since we left Freya, I think she has been pretty quiet. But I think as Cassidy approaches her, she's got one of her hands out at the navigation map, kind of like pointing at stuff. And Cassidy's like, do you know what it is? And she doesn't look away from the map. She keeps her finger on it and she says, I'm not sure. I think I might have an idea of what it's meant to become. That's not the same thing, though. No, we must learn more. Look, you told me before we left Freya that it was time for a new generation of Astro Elves to begin. Then you get onto my ship, and now you just start speaking in riddles. You've spent your whole life believing that you were searching for your people. You should consider the possibility that your people left something behind specifically for you to find. The beacons are pieces of a path. They're not the reason the path was created. And then Cassidy looks at her for a little bit. She rubs her ears, where the cuts are, where the scars are a little bit. And as she thinks about it, they might feel a little bit better because she's moving towards her goal of finding these beacons. And she's like, well, I have a question for you then. On the first planet I went to of Janus, there was mention of a woman named Alicia Cayde. Do you know this woman? And I think narratively, this is a good time for us to maybe roll a yes or no question, right? Maybe we can get something out of her right off the bat. I'm sorry for this really long narrative intro, you guys, before we get into mechanics, but it's just fun for me. I like telling stories, so that's what we're doing. And we're getting to know the crew, right? Let's use the Oracle here in Astroprisma. So, does Navi know Alicia Cayde, which is Cassidy Cayde's mother? Looking like we're going to need a D6. I would like my orange one. There we are. I've actually had some questions as to where I got this orange dice. I pick things out of TTRPGs all the time, and I actually got this one out of Token Terrors, which is a board game. This is where I got this from. It's fantastic. From Terrible Games. All right. Does Navi know Alicia Cayde? 3. No, but what? Maybe she says no. I don't really want to push on it too much right now. So maybe the but is like a narrative interrupt kind of thing happening here, right? So maybe she says no, but, and then if we remember from the last game, Slick Sully's backpack had something weird inside of it. And it's the only thing I haven't touched on in this narrative opening yet. And so I think we hear a thump as something strikes the inside of Sully's backpack. And then the ship moves a little bit itself, like the whole ship. And Cassidy's like, ship turbulence? Hey, ship didn't move. Localized turbulence? What exactly is in that bag there, Sully? And he goes, it's just personal effects. Yeah, but it just moved. I have very active personal effects. And then Tion's like, I don't trust you. Oh, I was starting to like you, though. Nice little ship you've got. Little sheep you've got. Yeah, well, you can like me from the other side of the ship then, maybe. And then, that's where we're going to end our little narrative bit. I think Failsafe is going to pipe up, which I hope Failsafe's voice changer is working okay in the edit. If it's not, I do apologize. I haven't had time to test it yet. Today, I kind of just went into this. Anyways, Failsafe pipes up and he says, attention crew of the Fallen Mercury, we are approaching an unexplored region of the system. So, here on our little map here, we are going into the inner ring. So this is going to be our first little dice roll here. And I was also thinking heavy, Astroprisma is not easy. I was actually watching months ago, I watched my friend Lore by Night play Astroprisma, and I think he only made it a couple cycles. And it made me realize that this game might be a little bit difficult. All right, so I actually have plans for that, which we will cross that bridge if we ever get to it. Narratively, some things may happen or not. We'll see. But we're going to try to live as long as we can in Astroprisma. That's the goal. So, without doing anything else, let's just go over here to our first roll chart, the inner ring. As we approach this hex, let's roll on this here roll chart to see what is inside of it. This looks like a 2d6 roll chart. So our first roll is going to be on, I see we have what is here, small planet, one moon, or void planet. We also have the encounters, and then we have odds or evens. So we have solar flare or Helios farm. And the inner ring event here, if we get a 2, then we come over here and we roll. Okay, so I have planet here. I got a little confused, but if we will actually roll a planet on the encounters chart, then we actually shape out a planet. So we're not always going to find a planet here. Very interesting. So let's roll our first d6 on the encounters to see what happens as we run into this hex here. That is a 1, which is a settlement. A settlement, huh? Out here in space? Interesting. So now we're going to go to 57. Looks like there are some different kinds of things we can do here and everything else, but let's read this a little bit. So, a refuge among the stars. After the apocalypse, life on planets became unsustainable and dangerous. Space stations, known as settlements, became home of most of humanity. Quickly, tensions and conflicts of interest created opposing groups ready to fight for control. Factions with different ideals and goals spread throughout space. Looks like each one of them is going to have a hangar, and our starship's hull is fully restored every time we go into a settlement. And we can buy pre-built ships here and ship modules. We can also refuel. There's also a trading hub here where we can trade stuff, items, weapons, cybernetics, etc. But here we have roll a d10 when entering a new settlement to find out what faction is in control of that settlement. If the result is a faction that already has a settlement in this system, roll again until all 5 factions have a settlement. You won't be allowed to enter a settlement if you have negative favor with that ruling faction. If you have negative favor with a ruling faction, you can pay 75 scrap per negative point you wish to remove. So we're going to roll our d10, and if we get Corsair Syndicate, we cannot stop at this settlement, period. So d10 time. Is that a 1? I think that's a 1. Yep, that's a 1. So narratively, that makes sense, being that we've encountered the Silver Order a bunch in this sector. They have their own settlement right here next to those planets. That makes complete sense. So I want to say narratively, we have like a -1 currently with the Silver Order. I don't know how much they know exactly about us, but they've encountered us like 3 or 4 times, and it's always not been good. That also makes sense narratively for the last episode. There was Silver Order checking out our ship, which means they might have just landed there and they were checking us out. So this is going to be a settlement that we cannot stop at, basically. Okay, what is the symbol for settlement here? Settlement is this little symbol here. So let's draw it on our map, and we'll put Silver Order settlement on there. Great. Okay, there we have it. Silver Order settlements right there. Okay, so we're going to see this bad boy, and Cassidy's going to see it. Maybe we can see like their symbol on the side of the settlement or something. And she's going to be like, well, I guess we can't stop here. Which, by the way, we're going to go down 1 fuel, because that's, we move, we encounter, we go down 1 fuel every hex. So this blue dice here is going to go down to 19. There we have it. And we're going to start moving on to the next section. Should there be any more narrative dialogue as we're moving? I don't think so. I mean, we kind of already covered a lot. It's really good playing this solo, having a crew on the ship, especially if you want to do a narrative thing like I do, having people to interact with. If you start with 1 person, it might be a little bit tough. You know what I mean? But if you don't want to do a narrative thing, then also, I guess, it doesn't really matter. Oh, we can roll on this, though. So this is the Exo Anomaly little worksheet here. So hard to read. But basically, at the end of each cycle, decide your intended destination hex for the new cycle, roll a d6 to determine the column on the anomaly table. Then we roll a d6 to determine the column, and we roll a d6 to determine the row. Some columns have a condition. By default, assume conditions refer to the previous cycle. If you don't meet the condition of the column you rolled, reduce your die result by 1 until you encounter a valid column. Then roll a d6 on the column's roll to determine the cycle's anomaly. And these anomalies are kind of like for crewmates. We can learn more about our crew and stuff like that. But if we get something that doesn't narratively make sense yet, we might shift it a little bit, or we'll just ignore it. But I want to try to use this every once in a while to help with our little narrative roleplay while we're on our ship. It's really kind of hard to read, so I need to just stop and read, not out loud. But I'm learning that even cycles and odd cycles matter. This has 2 tables here. So the green one is crewmates table, and the pink one is regular table. And on odd cycles, we roll for crewmates. On even cycles, we roll on this first top one. So since we're leaving our odd cycle, we're going to roll on our crewmates table. And basically, we're going to roll our d6 first. And each one of these down here kind of describes maybe what just happened in the last cycle. And if you haven't accomplished that thing yet, you go down the list by 1 each time. So we're going to roll our d6 once. I'll explain as I go. Hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. We're going to roll on the crewmates table. That is a 1. Cool. That makes it easy. A 1 is made no challenge rolls, which we didn't last cycle. We didn't make any challenge rolls. So now on this column here, we're going to roll another d6. That is a 6. Deep conversation. Roll mind, and if you succeed, gain 3 experience. So we have a deep conversation with someone, which super helpful for our roleplay section here. And I haven't been thinking at all about experience. That's one thing I always suck at when I play games. I don't really like track experience, but this one's pretty easy. So we're going to roll on mind, which our mind is 2, which isn't too bad. All right, so our first action roll of the game here. We're going to be rolling on mind to see how well this conversation goes. I could absolutely roll on our little crew member chart to see who maybe we talk to and have this deep conversation with to learn a little bit more about that specific person. Because each one of these guys is really like not super familiar to us. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fair enough? That's a 4. So Sully. So we're going to approach Sully. We're going to have a deep conversation with Sully. Sweet. So the pink one is going to be the challenge die, and the blue one is going to be our die. And we get a +2 to this. So 9 versus 6, that's 11 technically versus 6. So we succeed, which means we're going to get 3 experience, and we're going to have to figure out what kind of deep conversation we're going to have with Sully. How do we connect with this guy? We were already almost connecting a little bit with like mechanics, a little bit. I'm really like, dude, what kind of conversation could these two have together? Like, I been sitting here for a minute just thinking, but let's just improv on it and kind of see what happens. So I think as our camera comes down, we can see Cassidy and Sully sitting together on the floor of the cargo hold, surrounded by pieces of his gravity rifle, because maybe he's been cleaning it, right? So it's carefully disassembled on like an old dusty blanket, right? And I think as Cassidy's sitting there, she looks up at him and she goes, "What happened? Did you break it already?" And he goes, "No, man, it's pulling slightly to the left." "Oh, did you miss something?" "I never miss. That's how I know that it's pulling slightly to the left." And I think in this moment, maybe, because Cassidy's really good with mechanics and stuff, right? So maybe she reaches down and she picks up like a targeting regulator. Sci-fi jibber jabber. I'm all about it. And she sees that one of its pieces, its internal coils, has slightly shifted out of place. And she goes, "Oh, well, this piece right here is like ancient." "Most good things are." Most ancient things will explode if you don't treat them right." "Well, then try not to touch that too hard." And then I think Cassidy pulls out her sonic wrench. Remember the cool sonic wrench thing? And she beams it at the coil and slightly adjusts it a little bit. And I think Sully's watching her real deep, like he loves this friggin' gun. And he's like, "I can't believe someone's touching my gun," you know what I mean? And then maybe we have an opportunity to learn a little something about Sully, besides the fact that he just loves his gun. So maybe she's like, "So how'd you learn to shoot so good?" And he says, "Well, when I grew up, someone always had to keep watch, you know, man? Raiders are coming in at night, and through the darkness, they can just be invisible. And I could see every light on them ships from miles away." That sounds almost heroic in a endearing kind of way. "Yeah, well, don't spread that around because I've got a reputation." And then she gives him the regulator back, you know. And she goes, "So why'd you leave?" And as he clicks his little part back into place, he goes, "Well, eventually you realize that there's a difference between protecting a home and being trapped in your home. Besides, your ship looked like it could really use somebody who knew how to shoot." And she goes, "My ship is perfectly safe, I'll have you know." And as she says that, almost perfect timing, a panel falls from the ceiling behind him down on the ground. And he goes, "Yeah, sure, Captain." And then she goes, "Okay, well, try your rifle now." And then he just picks it up and he aims it at some kind of cargo container in here. And he goes, "Oh, this looks perfect." And she goes, "Good. Next time it doesn't shoot right, don't blame the gun." He goes, "No promises." Was that deep enough? I think so. I think that was pretty good. I mean, they're doing their best, you know? Okay, 2 big narrative things right at the beginning of a campaign. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's move on, shall we? That ends our first cycle, right? Now, potentially, we're up and in a even cycle now. I think so. I'm just reading through and double checking stuff, as I always do. This is why my recordings are about 5 times longer than the actual videos end up being, because I always reread and double check stuff as best that I can while I play. And there's a lot in this book that's very cool. It's very cool stuff. Okay, now we're on an even cycle, and it's time to move on to another hex. We're going to move over to 2 right here, this one right underneath the settlement, and we're just going to roll it back. We're going to do it again, baby. Let's roll our dice. That is another 1 again. So as I was reading through just a second ago, it said if you get a repeat exploration roll in a row, what did it say? So I'm not going to pretend like my recording stopped because that definitely did not happen. Everything is fine. Anyways, if we get a repeat encounter in a row, we move to the first encounter below it. And if that's also a repeat, we move forward until we find something that is a new event, right? So we're going to come back over here. We can see that the next one underneath settlement is actually the inner ring event, right? And I rolled because I rolled, freaking recording stopped, and I got a 6. On a 6, you dock your spaceship at a Crescent Space solar farm. After waiting for your energy and fuel to be replenished, you realize that there is something wrong with the farm system. Damage due to a space pirate raid that has rendered the computer terminal unstable. And we have 2 different action rolls we can make here. We can roll for mind, or we can roll for tech. If we roll for mind, we get more energy, which we don't need. Or if we roll for tech, we can get 10 more fuel. As you can see here on my map, I actually already drew a little crescent-shaped solar farm right there. So that's what's going to be here as we run into this crescent-shaped solar farm. And then I did actually roll for mind already, or I rolled for tech because I was like, we could use more fuel, I guess. We aren't desperate for it, but whatever. I actually want to re-roll this action roll so you guys know that we're staying true to it. So once again, we are going to be the blue, and our challenge roll is the purple. We have a +3 to this. So this time it's going to be a failure this time. Sad. So I'm going to keep our fuel at 18. There we go. But I was thinking a little bit narratively. So obviously we fail this time to fix the terminal's motherboard, which is really kind of tough because Cassidy's just so good at this stuff. But I think as we pull in here and we're trying to get tech and fuel, energy and fuel, we realize that something's going wrong. And I think that Failsafe says, ma'am, for some reason, the solar farm is not refueling our ship. Care to take a look? She goes, sure. I'll go out there and check it out. And as she goes out into the solar farm and she's looking at stuff, she sees all this stuff is messed up. I think that we can see Navi looking through the window of the ship, kind of just watching her, like inspecting her, like seeing how she does. And as she tries to fix it and she fails, it like sparks and she puts her head down all sad. And then she comes back onto the ship and she goes, well, it looks like we're not going to be able to fuel up here, folks. That's 2 in a row that we failed at because we can't deal with the Silver Order, and now the solar farm's messed up. So maybe we'll try again later, but for now, that's it. And she heads back to the cockpit and we're going to leave again away from this area. That's right. Now we are on an even section, which means that we are actually going to do another exo anomaly, but we're going to roll here on the top one instead. And the first one's going to be this top roll here. And if we land on something we have done, yes. If not, we just go down one and we continue until we land on something that we've done. Is that a 1 again? It is indeed. So we did actually make a challenge roll last time. So what happens if we have done it is the question. Interesting. So it also says that after you roll, you can decide to go to a different location if you want to. You can always change your destination for the new cycle in response to learning the results of the anomaly roll. So we could potentially go somewhere else if we want to. It's kind of just a little bit confusing, the way that they have put it together, but I think it's still useful, and I think you could use it however the heck you want to use it. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And being that, I was looking at this top chart as well, and I was like, well, what have we actually done that we could land on that would work? And the only one, because we aren't returning to a new hex, we aren't re-entering a settlement, or re-entering a hex, we aren't re-entering a settlement, we haven't fought in combat, and there is not a strange mood happening currently. So the only one we have is actually under 5 settlements found, basically. It's the only one we have left. So I'm going to go ahead and just roll on this one, and we'll see how it goes. D6. So, priority mission. Roll a mission from the settlement's ruling faction. Visit the settlements to receive your reward. Well, we cannot do that. Sad. So maybe there is like just a little bit of narrative bit. There is not a mission that we can potentially do, but maybe we get like a message, you know what I mean, on our ship. And it says we can actually go over to the Silver Order, technically. We can go over to their missions, right? We have neutral encounters, hostile encounters, then we actually have their bounty missions right here. So we can actually roll for this. It's a D10. Okay, what is that? That's an 8. We're on even right now, so that's not what it is. There we go. Over the message, there's like a picture of a Silver Order guy, you know, with earrings and his bald head. He's got all these tattoos and stuff. He's wearing like a leather coat, and he says, "Fight fire with fire. That's the only solution available once you have lived your entire life on as a defenseless prey. Pursued by predators for pay. You must kill a bounty hunter before they fulfill the end of their contract at the Frost Moon." And then phew, it just goes off. So there's a bounty hunter on the Frost Moon, and we're like, okay, well, we ain't doing that. All right, I want to roll up one more hex here. Let's do it. Shall we continue in the inner ring? I think we can. Let's go to number 3 here. We'll just continue this way, so then we can have a little bit more room to expand later. All right, D6, come on, give me a planet. Come on. 4 is a neutral encounter. Okay. Other people, you say. Neutral encounter is on 71, it says. Neutral encounters. Roll a d6. If the result is 1, you don't encounter anything this time. Leave the tile blank and make an exploration roll again next time you cross it. Interesting. Okay, so we roll a d6 first. Oh, we can see derelict ships, cargo transport, and then the 1 is just blank. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very fun. Cool, let's see. That's a 5. Radio signals. Cool. Let's roll a d6 on radio signals. That is a 2. Your radar system displays glitches and shows static. All radio signals disappear, replaced by a loud white noise. Your ship has entered the Quiet, an area of space run by outlaws, where comms are disabled by EMP relays. Roll for an hostile encounter on the next unexplored hex. Oh, I wonder what I put in this. Put in this here. This would be, I'll just put EMP. What did it call it? The Quiet. Crazy. Okay, so let's go down to 12 now. Let's roll for a hostile encounter, I guess. Cool, we can actually do some fighting or something in today's episode. Hostile encounter. We're actually going down to 12, sorry. So that's going to make it the middle ring. Yes, hostile encounter is on page 69. Hostile encounters. Roll a d6. If the result is 1, you don't encounter anything this time. Fair enough. Let's do it. Come on now. Okay, here's what we have. That's a 3. So we have space pirates. Oh, good lord. That's a 6. The crown jewel of this system's largest space pirate fleet, a Tarask Titan mothership in pristine condition, stolen from an old world military base. You are unlucky enough to cross its path. Your attempt to escape is futile as the ship prepares its attack. The Tarask Titan? This can't be our first space battle before I even know how the to do. What? Holy shit. Here it is. The Tarask Titan. Okay, it's got 40 hull and 4 actions. Deal X damage, ignoring shields. Deal 3 damage, so it has a roll chart for what it does each 4 times. Okay, how do we escape? We're about to learn how crazy space is, I guess. Escaping space combat. You can spend 2 action dice to attempt to flee from a space battle. Roll Grace against the enemy and add the enemy's ship number of actions to the challenge die instead of their Gra. If you succeed, you escape the fight. We can spend 2 action dice to do this. Okay, it says it's basically just like normal combat, except there's like a couple slight differences. So let's go over to normal combat and see how it goes. Just to double check we're going to do it right. Okay, seems pretty straightforward, but it's talking about action dice. Spend 2 action dice. So let's double check that we have that right. At the start of each turn, we roll a number of d6s known as action dice according to our ship's engines. These represent the amount of power you can allocate to modules on your ship. Every turn, you spend your action dice on your ship's weapons and systems modules to activate them to make use of their individual abilities. Cool. I actually do remember that, and that was actually really kind of fun. So now to escape combat, we must spend 2 of our action dice to try to flee, and it'll be a contested roll. Our ship has 2 action dice per turn, but we also get 1 reroll per turn as well. So we're going to spend 2 of our action dice. This is Grace that we're going to be rolling. Our Grace is 0. Yo, sick. This is really working out, I'm going to tell you. So they have a +4, we have a +0. Once again, the blue dice is ours, the purple dice is going to be the Tarasks. So as we enter into this hex, we're just rolling in, and then all of our radars and stuff come back on, and Cassidy's like, what the heck was that? And then as we look out the window, Failsafe is like, ma'am, we're being approached by a very huge ship. I suggest that we run. And she goes, she looks out, we all look out the window, and there's just this huge ship coming after us, and she's like, yeah, let's get the hell out of here. I want to say we're going to try this, and then if we fail to escape space combat, we can also try to do a boost escape, which just spends 5 of our fuel to get us the hell out of there, which I almost forgot about. I'm wondering if we can do both. I think we can, right? We may do so at any point during a space battle, even during the enemy's turn. Cool. So first let's try to roll, and then if not, we're going to spend 5 fuel to get the hell out of here. Which, by the way, we went into a new hex here. This is fun because we can count 1, 2, 3. So we should be at 17. And then we're going to go into another hex and see this huge Tarask ship here, which I kind of want to keep it here inside of the quiet zone. That's kind of fun for me. So let's put us down to 16. 1, 2, 3, 17. Gotcha. So we're going to put the Tarask ship here in the quiet place. I almost want to draw it, you know? Okay, enough stalling. They have +4. Let's see if we can get out of this without wasting fuel. They got a 2. What? Is that a 7? So that means they got a 6 and we got a 7? Yo, sick. So that means Cassidy knows what she's doing, right? So this is like a cool narrative bit where everyone looks and they're like scared as shit as this ship approaches, like there is no escape, and it begins firing at us, and she goes, hold on everybody, and she whips the ship around and it like flips, and everybody's like, ah, the gravity's still on, so people like hit the roof and there's like chunks of panels falling off and shit, and she just zooms through all of these lasers. I think maybe she goes under the huge ship, you know what I mean? So like it can't see us, and then she flies out of there from behind, right? Off into the other hex. So whenever we start next time, we're going to start here. Yeah, I would love to do some space combat with the cool mechanics, but that's not happening. That's not happening. Not against that damn thing. So we haven't really done much, actually, at all, I think. Just some narrative stuff, getting the basics down, I think, but that's basically where we're going to end for today. I don't actually know how long this video is going to be because I kept stopping to double check rules and stuff like that, just to make sure I was doing it right. But as it stands for now, exciting. I really enjoyed this. That's fantastic. So for the whole next month of August, every other week, we're going to do a Astroprisma episode, all right? Until we fill out this hex map, or until we feel like we're done with it, or until our ship crashes and burns, which I have some narrative ideas for that, and we'll get into that whenever we cross that dang bridge. But for now, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. And yes, hopefully next time we'll actually find a planet, or get into a dogfight, or maybe encounter something supernatural. That could be a lot of fun. I almost thought we did, but it was just an EMP sector. I was like, oh, this is going to be cool narrative stuff, but it was just an EMP sector. So fair enough. 3 hexes down, a lot more to go. Hopefully, as we ramp up, we'll start being able to get through more of them quickly whenever I don't have to double check rules. Hopefully, could be a lot of fun. I don't know. All right, but for now, everybody, take a seat on the couch and roll for initiative by subscribing, at least until you find yourselves going through the vast emptiness of space yourselves. Roll on that, weirdos, and let me know what you get. See you next time.
Just like, share and subscribe. Just like, share.